we're going to go ahead and get started. As I said before, my name is Caitlin Snyder, and I am a Policy and Research Associate at the National Housing Conference. Thank you to everyone for joining today's Connect Home USA webinar that the NHC is hosting with our friends at Everyone On. So today you'll hear from me, and you'll also hear from Amber Petty and Jojo Ogren over at Everyone On. So we're going to walk through just a little bit of what NHC is and about us, and then we'll get into Everyone On and the Connect Home program that they help to facilitate. So for folks that aren't familiar with NHC, go to the next slide, please. So the National Housing Conference has been around since 1931, and through policy, research, and communications, we advocate for everyone to have an opportunity to live in a quality and affordable home in a thriving community. And part of that thriving community is access to the internet and to devices to connect to the internet that connects them to the rest of the world. So this is just a little bit about us. And before we really dive into the content, I just want to go over a few bit of technical considerations. So if we go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more slide forward. Maybe one more. I'm looking for the Q&A slide. There we go. So before we get into that content, so if folks have questions throughout the webinar, you're able to submit them through the GoToWebinar chat box. So in this red box that's highlighted on your screen, you can type in a question, and we'll be taking them at the end of the webinar, but please feel free to submit them throughout the webinar. So if we go back to that digital divide slide, thank you. So on this slide, this is from the Pew Research Center, and you can see in the dark blue is the access that people making under $30,000 a year have, and the light blue is between $30,000 and $9,900, and then in the gray is $100,000 and above. So the main one that I'm focused on is on the home broadband connection. And you can see here that between the lowest income band and the highest income band, there is a nearly 40% divide for home broadband. So this is kind of where we're really focused, and all of these other metrics are very important, whether or not people have access to a smartphone or to a computer. But having access to the internet, if you don't have access to the internet, it doesn't make a big difference whether or not you have a laptop or a computer, because if you're not able to connect that computer to the internet, that's kind of where we're really focused. So if we go to the next slide, here we just lay out some of the different things that why NHC really cares about this access. So much of learning happens online, whether that's just completing homework or that's taking classes over the internet. And more job searches and applications are completely moving online. And related back to my earlier point about education, applying for government assistance, whether that's just general government assistance or the free application for federal financial student aid that helps students to pay for college, all of that is online. And so it's really important for people to have access to an internet connection to obtain government services, and also to obtain healthcare coverage, and for remote parts of the country to obtain telemedicine where doctors may be not available or the specialists that they need, that care isn't available. So through an internet connection, they are able to access all of these things that they might not otherwise be able to access. And I feel like this last point on social connection often gets overlooked, but it's just kind of a general thing for people to be able to communicate with one another and stay connected to their families and their colleagues and their friends. All of this happens through the internet, and for people who are lacking the internet, they're missing out on all of this, or they have to go to the public library or somewhere else where there's free public Wi-Fi. But NHC believes that everyone should have access to this in their home. And so on that note, I just want to point out two NHC resources. So these were published a few years ago at this point in 2015. But this first one, the Unlocking the Connection in Austin, Texas, is about when Google Fiber launched in Austin, Texas, and just kind of the difference that it made for folks. And the second one on Eden Housing's Cottonwood Place. This was a case study that we published, and this was looking at internet access for seniors and the difference that it made in Cottonwood Place, and just also about the challenges that seniors face, not just in internet connection, but in being able to learn how to use the technology and the internet connection. So these are two resources that NHC has available on our website if folks want to check them out. But with that, I will turn it over to our friends at Everyone On.
Thank you, Gatling. Really appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to our West Coast viewers. We really appreciate you guys making the time to come hear about our program and our 2018 application cycle. Just want to give a quick reminder about the questions section again. As Caitlin mentioned, feel free to send them in any time. We will have an allotted time for questions and answers at the end. But if we see something, we are monitoring as it comes. If we see something pertinent, we'll go ahead and answer it right there. I'm going to give you an overview of today's agenda. And just a note, we will be making this available on our website after the webinar. So if you wanted to rewatch it, if you missed something, it will be available. What we'll try to do is we have this agenda slide throughout the PowerPoint presentation. So we'll try to also bring in timestamps on our YouTube video so that you can jump to whatever section you're looking for answers on as well, just trying to make it easy for navigation for folks. So today we'll go through kind of understanding Connect Home. What is it? How does it work? What are the program benefits? We'll go through the eligibility for joining the program. What's required of communities who enroll. And then I'll do a deep dive on our application and really go through it's really segmented into 4 sections, but I'll go through each question with you guys just so you're able to understand kind of what we're asking for and then ask questions about it. Particularly, I know that most communities will have questions about some of our requirements in terms of documentation. And then, as I mentioned, we've left plenty of time for Q&A, so please don't feel like if I don't ask it now, it won't get answered. We'll make sure to get to all of those as well. So to get started, what is ConnectHomeUSA? So ConnectHomeUSA is a movement to bridge the digital divide in HUD-assisted housing. And it's under the leadership of Everyone On. So as Caitlin mentioned, I serve as senior manager for Everyone On. We are a national nonprofit. We've been around since 2013. And our goal is to bridge the digital divide in the United States. And we consider the digital divide to be part of a 3-legged stool, which I'm sure most of you have heard, where we want to get people, 1, connected at home, 2, access to affordable devices, and then 3, access to training that really helps them to understand how to be safe online, how to really take advantage of the resources that are online, and eventually thrive online in today's digital society. So ConnectHomeUSA is just one program that we have here at Everyone On, and it is one of our largest that we focus specifically on helping HUD-assisted residents. So a little bit of a history just to see where we've been, where we've come. We launched in 2015. This was an initiative out of the Obama administration, as well as the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and we signed on as the nonprofit lead in that space. So when we launched, we had 28 pilot communities, so 27 cities and 1 tribal nation, and we were focused on bringing connectivity and programming, really digital inclusion programming, all 3 legs of the stool that I previously talked about, to K-12 families in HUD-assisted housing, but focusing on those 28 communities that initially joined. So since then, we've seen great success in our 28 communities. So in May 25th of 2017, ConnectHomeUSA was kind of launched as our expansion to how can we go from an initiative to a program to really build out, how can we expand to more geographies and have more success in terms of closing that digital divide, particularly within public housing. So I mentioned we started with 28 in 2015. In 2017, we added another 30. And this year, we will add up to 35 new communities. And it's our goal to reach over 100 communities by 2020. And our program does go until 2020, so it's a 3-year program. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Jojo to tell you a little bit about the success we've had so far.
Wonderful. So as Amber said, we're looking to, by the close of this program in 2020, reach over 100 communities around the country. But so far, we've managed to connect over 36,000 households to affordable internet service. We've hosted over 300 trainings, and we've been able to deploy over 10,000 devices to our families living in HUD-assisted housing. And critically, over 90% of residents who have signed up for affordable service through ConnectHomeUSA have maintained their connection. So this shows that not only is ConnectHomeUSA helping to get these families connected, but the devices and the training and the work that you all do in making sure that these families are not only getting online but are being successful online is ensuring that they're retaining the connection year in, year out. And ensuring that the digital inclusion work that we're doing, as well as the many communities that we have around the country are doing, is truly having an effect long term.
All right, we missed one here, so just want to go back really quickly and talk about our 2020 goals. So as Jojo mentioned, so far we've connected about 36,000 households. Our goal is by 2020 to connect 350,000 residents to home internet connectivity. We also have device and training goals. So we mentioned that number was 10,000. Our goal is to get that to 50,000 by 2020, and also to raise our training numbers to 3,500 trainings hosted for our residents by 2020. So next we'll shift over to how it works. ConnectHomeUSA is a true public-private partnership. We want to talk you through who are the entities there that are working to make this program a success. We'll talk about our main partnership and support models. As I mentioned, this started as a HUD and White House initiative and has since come under the leadership of everyone else, but we are still very much a partnership between us and HUD. So we serve as kind of the we administer the program for our communities. And that covers a wide range of responsibilities and tasks, such as technical assistance to communities, providing resources. We're going to talk a little bit later about all of the program benefits. But between everyone on and HUD, we really are your main two kind of conduits for the program. I mentioned that ConnectHomeUSA is a true public-private partnership. And that is very true in the fact that everything we have is, our motto is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Everything we have is due to the partners that we have that are willing to work with us and are also dedicated to our mission. There is no funding behind ConnectHomeUSA. Everything that we have been able to do has been an in-kind donation or grant writing that has happened on the ground with communities. So I want to mention our partners. I'm going to go through them by type. So internet service providers. So as listed here, you can see all of our internet service providers that are on the national level. I should mention that communities also sometimes have local providers that they are working with. But these are our main providers, and they're working with us to really get those low-cost internet options out to communities, available for residents, and hoping to connect over 350,000 by 2020, as I mentioned. Next, we'll go through our device providers. So we work with two large networks of refurbishers that are helping us to kind of find innovative ways to meet the demand for devices. So we've worked with FreeGeek, eStewards, Cano, which is one of our Raspberry Pi devices, specifically built to teach our youth about coding, as well as computer reach. So these are some to name a few. There are many others, as I mentioned, at the local level. We follow up with that collaboration with our communities as well. So they're also making partnerships. But these are the folks that are helping us to move from 10,000 to 50,000 in the next 2 years. And last but certainly not least, I talked a little bit about the third leg of the stool, which is digital literacy and training. So we definitely are always looking at what content can we bring alongside our connectivity and devices. So we definitely work with not only pure digital literacy training, but talking about how connectivity really impacts other streams. So how does connectivity and bringing ConnectHomeUSA Resources affect education? So working with College Board to make sure that students who are looking for college readiness materials know that they have access to that through our program. Or working with Best Buy to do Geek Squad Academies so that middle schoolers are learning about robotics and digital music. Even to Generations Online, we're working with them to help our senior residents thwart social isolation and also be secure in the fact that they can be safe online and learning how to navigate this new world, if you will. So we have many content providers. We've listed a few here, but are always adding new content providers where we feel we can help those streams, whether it be education, workforce development, financial literacy, or healthcare. Those are our four major pillars, and we try to recruit partners to serve each of those. Cool. Next, we're going to move on to ConnectHomeUSA program benefits, and I'm going to throw it back to Judith.
Wonderful. So as Amber mentioned earlier, ConnectHomeUSA is very much a public-private partnership, and as such, our work with stakeholders has led to them committing over $70 million in-kind resources and low-cost offers to this initiative. And this really allows us to act across the various legs of the digital inclusion spectrum, really attacking all three pillars, where we have partners such as Kano, such as eStewards, helping us on the device side to provide devices that are large screened enough to allow our families to actually create as opposed to just being content consumers. We have College Board and Common Sense and ALA and so many of our other partners who are helping to provide digital literacy resources to our families. And then we have our critical ISP partners such as T-Mobile, Cox, and Google Fiber that are helping to actually get our families online and giving them access to all the resources that the internet has to offer. Another of the major program benefits that ConnectHomeUSA does afford to the PHAs that we're working with is direct technical assistance from the Everyone On team. So basically what that entails is being able to contact a member of our team at any point via email, as well as a monthly check-in and a newsletter and webinar series that keep communities informed, keep them engaged with new resources, and serve as a troubleshooting resource when our communities do need a little support. Another of the major benefits is being able to attend our super awesome national and regional summit. So we have a national summit every fall, and we usually have it in the fall. And we have regional summits based on the geography and where your community is located. And what that really affords you to do is gives you access to many of our stakeholders, as well as to really important panels, breakout sessions, Q&As, all really important resources that give you information, that give you resources on how to make your Connect Home initiative tailored to your residents as well as effective as possible. One of the most critical tools that each ConnectHomeUSA community has access to is our portal. As you can see, there is 4 different screenshots, and each of them shows a different facet of our portal. Our portal is a really awesome resource in that it gives you a list of tasks that you have to complete, so you know that if I need to submit a data update, for instance, I would go into the portal to do that. If you're trying to look for a stakeholder, your portal is customized to your individual community with all relevant national stakeholders and all relevant local stakeholders that we work with. So you'll have access to all of those in the portal, as well as to each of the stakeholders' commitments that are in your files section. Communications and resources. So this is where you will probably work with me the most as part of your ConnectHomeUSA initiative. So we have our program announcements and other useful resources in our newsletter, which goes out on the first Tuesday of every month. On the third Thursday of every month, we have a webinar series that spotlights different stakeholders that we work with, as well as gives really useful resources for our communities. And you can also go on our blog, which is on the ConnectHomeUSA website. And one of the major things that we do from HQ is really support and amplify your work by, tweeting about it, writing blog posts, connecting it to everyone on's much bigger Twitter account, stuff like that, trying to amplify the work that you're doing and really get the word out there.
So now we're going to transition over to eligibility to join the program. So really quickly, I wanted to go over who's eligible to apply and where we're going in 2018. I should mention that we do reevaluate eligibility every year. So what was true last year might not be true this year, might not be true next year, as the program continuously grows and expands. So in 2018, eligible applicants would include public housing authority, multifamily developers, and coalitions. So to explain a little bit about coalitions, in general, our application process is made to select a geographically diverse cohort of communities. So generally, we will not accept 2 applicants from the same geography. So that could be, I am a public housing authority in Anytown, USA, and also a multifamily developer applied from the same Anytown, USA. Both of those applications would not get in, just because we aim to have as much geographic diversity as possible within our cohorts. However, groups like that are encouraged and allowed to apply together. I think we have 2 coalitions in our cohort right now, where it may be like a city and a county with overlapping geographies applied together, or a public housing authority and a multifamily developer applied together. That is totally okay. We just need I'll talk about this a little bit later in application topics, but they would be able to apply together and most of the questions could answer together. They would just need to submit 2 separate documentation attachments to their application. So I'll go over that a little bit later. Now, unfortunately, nonprofits are not eligible to apply, and nor are housing providers that solely serve low-income housing tax credit units. We recognize nonprofits are a big part of our work. They're often local stakeholders supporting our communities. However, for us, the lead for ConnectHomeUSA does need to be a housing provider. So we stick to public housing authorities, multifamily developers, and or coalitions. So next we'll go over the community commitment. Joseph?
So this is basically going over what we would require of your community as one of our ConnectHomeUSA communities. And as we're excited to have you, here's just a rundown of the different things that we will be looking to you to do. So we look for a dedicated staff member to serve as a ConnectHomeUSA lead. Obviously, the staff member does not have to dedicate their time exclusively to ConnectHomeUSA, although that's a dream. But we just need someone that serves as the lead for your community. And this picture on the right is a really great example of that. So even though Carlos served as the lead for ConnectHomeUSA, all 5 people in that picture are, well, 6, but the middle is our CEO, TK. But all 5 of the other people in that photo were from the Edinburgh Housing Authority, and they were at the ConnectHomeUSA Summit to learn, to get ready, and they've been really doing a great job as a ConnectHomeUSA community so far. So that's just a good example of the fact that you can have one dedicated staff member as the lead, but have your whole community in attendance at the summit, or just have a coalition of employees or colleagues working on ConnectHomeUSA together. You also are expected to attend the National Summit every year. It's a really great point to get together with other communities and to mutually learn and get access to resources. You will be required to provide a joint letter that Amber will talk about a little bit more from the city, just to get that buy-in from the city and really get them to support Connect Home from their perspective. And finally, you will be required to host a local meeting of current and potential stakeholders by the end of January. And we will talk more about this, as well as send you guys a link to our old webinar on hosting a local convening. Right. So you will also be expected to submit a yearly project plan via the portal. This really helps us to know what you have in store or what you're looking ahead to doing. But more importantly, it gives us an idea of what kind of resources we need to be looking out for your community, what kind of events you're looking to host, if there's any way that we could support the event, if there's any way that we could amplify it, if there's any way that we could provide resources. It is the project plan that really helps us to strategize and get you access to those resources. You will also obviously be required to work towards your adoption device and training goals. That is the crux of the program. That is the part of the program that really benefits your residents, that really helps them to get access to those digital resources. You will also be required to submit quarterly internal results and send us success stories, which are the best part of the work we do. This really gives you a chance to talk to residents to see who has benefited the most from the wonderful digital inclusion work that you will be doing as part of ConnectHomeUSA. And that picture right there is Raven Stark. She's from the Choctaw Nation. She was given a tablet and connectivity as part of Connect Home, and she was able to fulfill one of her big dreams of becoming a motivational speaker as a result of that, because she was able to access online resources such as Facebook Live that gave her an audience, but also gave her the tools to learn a little bit more about how to become a motivational speaker. And the tablet really helped her to overcome some of the accessibility challenges that she had before and accomplish that dream. So those are some of the success stories that we're looking forward to hearing over the next year as you guys join ConnectHomeUSA.
So now we're going to shift over to what most of you came for, the application topics for 2018. So let's jump right in. So our section 1 is your profile. And I've listed out 3 of the questions here. The others are simply name, email, contact information, things like that. So the first thing we ask you for is tell us a little bit about who you are. So application designation. Are you applying as a PHA, a multifamily developer, a coalition, or a tribal nation? And that'll be a drop-down menu, pretty straightforward. The second is geography. Please try to tell us what your coverage area is. Sometimes that's really straightforward, as in I am, New York City, and I cover all New York City. Or it can be a little more complicated as we get into, tribal nations or counties. Please try to give us as much detail as possible. Let us know any counties you may cover, any major cities. We're just trying to get a sense of where you are and how expansive your footprint is. And then third, estimated reach. For us, try to tell us how many households are in your coverage area. How many units do you serve with programming? In this, you can include public housing, multifamily if you're a multifamily developer or if you're applying as a coalition, and any Section 8 vouchers. Really just trying to get a sense of the reach we would have with this programming in your community. Section 2 is the history. So now to show us who you are, tell us a little bit about what you've done in the past. So we do ask if you've participated in any place-based initiatives in the past or are currently participating in. And the reason for that is Connect Home, while it is not funded like most of the other place-based initiatives, be it Promise Zones, neighborhood, choice neighborhoods, or Jobs Plus, we are run in a very similar fashion. So any experience that you have under those initiatives is definitely valuable for us to know in terms of what's the learning curve going to be like in terms of integrating you into our programming. Second, if you have participated in those place-based initiatives, please feel free to tell us the results. Let us know how it went. If you're currently in the thick of it, how is it going? And oftentimes people here think, well, if I don't have good results, I shouldn't put anything. That is definitely not the case. Please feel free to let us know. Even if it didn't go well, we'd love to know the lessons learned. If you felt like, feel free to share any feedback you have on here's what the place-based initiative was and how it worked in my community or how it didn't work in my community. It's just helpful for us to know how you went through the process of integrating that programming into your resident services work. And any information is good information. I can't say that enough. That's just a topic throughout the application. Please give us as much detail as you can. And then third, we ask you about your digital inclusion work. So specifically, have you done any digital inclusion work? Maybe you've done campaigns before, you've done enrollment events. Maybe perhaps you partnered with a local ISP before to try to get people signed up. Please tell us about those experiences. We'd love to know where you're starting from. Everyone isn't going to start at the same place, but it's really helpful for us to know as we build out your profile in the application. Our third section is the goal statement. And I like to call this kind of like the personal statement section in your college application. So first question is ConnectHomeUSA integration. Just please share with us your plan for building in ConnectHomeUSA to your organization's longer term goals. Because while we're a 3-year program, we recognize that connectivity has its benefits that are wide reaching, whether it be education, whether it be workforce, whether it be financial literacy or healthcare, whether it even be return on investment to the PHA for having residents that are able to take advantage of online resources that are moving there or being able to recertify online. We know that the effects are wide reaching, so we want to know what's the plan for sustainability, what's the plan for integrating it now, and how are we thinking about this is just going to be a part of our programming moving forward. With that open-ended question that we leave you there, we also leave you space to give us a little more detail if you have it. So if there are additional comments, the things you just think we should know in your application, we leave a section for that. It's pretty open-ended, whether it be an explanation from a question above or just additional notes that you'd like us to read over as we deliberate. Feel free to fill that in as much as you'd like. And then we also leave an additional documentation section where you can attach any documents you want us to read over that can be pertinent to your application. And I'll go back to talk a little bit about return on investment. So one of the key points in that is not only how can it benefit residents, but how can it benefit housing providers as they work to be kind of more efficient. We know that you guys do God's work in terms of serving your residents, and that oftentimes it's more work than one person can do. So a good note on that would be NYCHA, one of our communities who are able to build out their own app, and because of like connectivity and folks being able to access that app, they saved $3.8 million. And I think it averaged out to about $400,000 a month that they were saving because they were able to get their residents connected to digital resources. And then section 4, and this is where I'll talk a little bit more in detail about some of the documents we talked about earlier, is required documentation. So our first required documentation is an MOU. And it's a really straightforward document. It's 1 page front and back. And it lists out what JoJo talked about in terms of community commitments and program benefits. So there's a section that says, here is what ConnectHomeUSA will provide to your community. It goes through each deliverable that we have to you. And then there's a section that says, here is what my community is agreeing to provide by enrolling in ConnectHomeUSA. And it goes through line by line, all of the things that JoJo talked about. So submitting the project plan or the quarterly updates. And it's really just a sense of understanding that, understanding what's required of a program, and having that mutual responsibility between our two parties. And we leave a spot for your housing organization, it could be the executive director or the person submitting the application, to go ahead and sign that. The second is a letter of support from the city or the municipality. Throughout our 3 years of doing this program, we found that having that city partnership has been extremely useful. Not only having that buy-in from the mayor's office, but also in the connections, particularly with some of our communities that are looking to do more innovative solutions, whether it be build-outs or mesh networks, hope that the power to convene partners. The city has been a great partner to our housing authorities as they've moved throughout this program. So we'd love to know that you have that support as well. So we asked for a letter of support. It doesn't have to be too long. Usually they're about 2 paragraphs. They do have to be on official letterhead and signed by someone from the city, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the mayor. So it could be someone in the Office of Innovation. Maybe if your city has a housing department, it could be someone there. As long as it's from a .gov email address, essentially. So some of the examples have been, if you're applying as a county manager, a county executive. If you're applying as a tribal nation, maybe a chief. But definitely, we want to know that you have that support from the municipal lead. And I realized that was a lot of information, but look at that, we've reached the end of the application. So we're going to open it up to Q&A. I feel like there'll probably be quite a few. So we'll go ahead and toss it open. I mentioned before, you guys can go ahead and type it into the question section on the go-to webinar function. If you can't find it, you can go ahead and put it in the chat as well. We'll be monitoring both.
So we have a decent amount of questions that have come in already, and I encourage folks to continue submitting them. So first one is, will housing units financed by the low-income housing tax credit fall under the designation of HUD-assisted household for the program?
Great question. Thank you, Caitlin, for monitoring those. So this year, low-income housing tax credit units will not be covered under ConnectHomeUSA, will not be eligible. A housing provider can apply as long as that's not the only type of unit they serve. So they need to serve either traditional public housing, multifamily, or Section 8 vouchers to be eligible.
And our next question was, who builds the backbone for each community? I
assume with backbone you mean capacity on the ground. So as I mentioned, ConnectHomeUSA is not a funded program. Usually our point of contact for the Public Housing Authority is the Director of Programming or a Resident Services Coordinator. But additional capacity is often gained through, often our communities will partner with the local university to have grad students come and volunteer. We also have a partnership with AmeriCorps Vistas, and many of I think the majority of our communities often apply for a VISTA to support this work as well, and that's a one-year placement. So there are additional ways that we work with communities to build capacity. However, on the ground with the Housing Authority, usually the capacity is built into the Resident Services Coordinator.
Thanks. And then we have another question. So are tribal housing authorities eligible to apply?
So tribal housing authorities are definitely not only eligible, but encouraged to apply. ConnectHomeUSA represents a great resource and an opportunity to get an even more marginalized community access to online resources and to the wonders of the internet. So definitely apply.
Yeah, I think in our first year we had one tribal nation. In our second year we had 3. So we'd love to keep that number growing.
I think this is following up on one of the earlier questions. Public housing authorities that do not exclusively fund LIHTC properties are eligible. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We've answered a couple of these already. Is there a way to check whether our community is already registered with ConnectHomeUSA?
Yes. So if you go to our website, at the top navigation bar, there's communities. And if you scroll through there, there's a map where you can look through each community, but there's also a list of pilot versus 2017 if you wanted that breakdown as well. So that's where you can check to see all of our communities listed. If you're asking that because of geography, I would, definitely check that before applying. You're still welcome to apply if there's enough difference. So I think, for example, if you have any specific questions about your geography and whether or not you're eligible because there's one near you, the best bet would be to just email us. We're pretty responsive. And I should have put this on here, but ConnectHomeUSA@everyoneon.org. Caitlin, I wonder if we can include that in the follow-up email. But feel free to, we're happy to hop on the phone and just chat through those options with you if you have any questions about that.
And so I'm going to combine two questions. We've got, can you apply for more than one community, and would you consider a coalition?
Yes. So you can definitely apply as more than one entity serving one community. So I think the confusion here might be in semantics. So for instance, if I was, let's say, I'm going to use DC area references because I'm from DC. If I was Prince George's County and I wanted to apply alongside Montgomery County, Maryland, we can apply together. As long as both parties have met the documentation requirement, we can apply as, let's say, we could name ourselves like Maryland counties of ConnectHomeUSA or anything like that. But we definitely would welcome communities that want to partner up. As I mentioned, we have 2 to 3 coalitions already under our belt where the city and the county or the PHA and the multifamily developers are working together.
Great. Can you describe how competitive the application rounds have been in the past?
It's a good question. I'll say we definitely do usually get a lot more applications than spots. I'll definitely say there's a bell curve in the applications, just to be honest. But I will say the most competitive applications are always the ones that give us as much detail as possible. Because that really helps us to understand you. I think of it just as like a college application. The more I know about the applicant, the more likely I am to see the potential. So definitely would recommend you guys giving us as much detail as possible. And again, if you have any questions about what to add, if you have would this be relevant, shoot us a quick email. We're happy to talk it through with you.
We got another question. Is there a reoccurring monthly cost to the resident?
If we're talking about just the program is completely free. I believe we're referring to home internet connectivity. And the answer is it depends on the provider. So we have providers that are directly to the resident. So a good example of that would be AT&T Access, where the resident signs up, and then it's the resident's responsibility to keep up the monthly payment of $9.95 a month. So that would be a recurring cost. But we have other providers that are kind of working directly with the PHA, to where maybe they've acquired a grant and they're able to purchase the service on the resident's behalf. So both of those options are definitely common. So it just depends on the provider and the route for connectivity that you choose. Like some of our communities decide to build their own Wi-Fi networks. And in that case, there's no cost to the resident. There's just a cost of how can we get the equipment up and running. So we have that flexibility because we recognize no two communities are the same. So what works for, Chicago might not work for Macon, Georgia. So it really does have to be a customized plan in terms of what resources are available to you guys and what's going to best serve your residents.
So following up on that, there's a similar question about how communities have served tenant-based voucher holders through scattered site models in the past.
Got it. So I think the best example of that has been Atlanta, was one of our pilot sites. Again, they don't have a lot of public housing. Most of theirs is scattered sites and vouchers. And for their approach, it's really been kind of like I mentioned, it's collaboration, and I mentioned it in an outward partnership model, but it's also inward. So we work with the resident service coordinator most of the time as our ConnectHomeUSA lead. And usually that person is able to tie into other programs that the PHA has going for residents, whether that be, we're involved in Jobs Plus, how can we tie this in? We're working in these sites for Jobs Plus, how can we tie in ConnectHomeUSA as one of those resources that's going to help further both programs. So whether it be Project SOAR or something like that, where it's like, how can we have these educational counselors, how can we tie in ConnectHomeUSA to make sure that our students are able to really take advantage of this and go further? So I think for most of our scattered sites communities, they've really kind of followed the path of other programs to say, hey, we already know we're focusing on maybe this zip code with a mailer. Let's make sure that we include ConnectHomeUSA materials in that, or we're focusing on this zip code with programming, and we know we have a local Boys and Girls Club. Can we partner with them through ConnectHomeUSA to host an event where we can get people out and share information? So I think just different resident engagement strategies have been employed, but usually it's working through pre-existing programming to make sure that we're working smarter, not harder.
Thanks for that. Are there any circumstances that could suspend an organization from participation in the program? And they gave the example of not reaching goals.
Yes, there are circumstances. I would not necessarily count the not reaching goals. I think for us, this is the purpose of the MOU. One circumstance that could get a program suspended would be becoming non-community. Like, we don't hear from you guys, we're not getting the reports, the monthly touch points go without a call or an email or anything like that. For the most part, we're willing to work with communities who may fall just short of their goals. Our main barrier to participation in the program is going to be effort on your side. So if you're working with us and it doesn't look like you're going to make your goal, but there's been an honest effort and we're working through it, that's not something that we're going to suspend the community for. However, if we're not hearing from the community, they're not making their progress updates, there's just a lack of effort on the ground, there is definitely some recourse for them to be suspended or dropped from the program.
That's helpful. In terms of the application, so it says May 15th on your website. When is the deadline for submission?
Great question. So we will leave the application open for 1 month. The deadline will be June 15th, 2018, 5 p.m. Eastern time.
And how long are the applications effective for?
Trying to understand that question. I believe it refers to,
like, once you're accepted and you're a participating community.
Got it. So as I mentioned, it closes on June 15th. We will try to let communities who have been accepted or denied, we'll let you know your application status by, I believe the last day of June is the 30th, by June 30th. And then we will publicly announce accepted communities on our website on July 15th, which will be our 3-year anniversary.
Congratulations. But how long are communities kind of in the program for, and how often do they need to renew?
Oh, got it. Sorry, I didn't understand the question. So the program does run through the end of 2020. That's the right now answer. We may decide to expand it beyond that, depending on new resources that become available. But communities do not need to renew every year. So there's no need to, I applied in 2018, now I have to apply again in 2019. Once you're part of the ConnectHomeUSA family, you're just in. You're just here with us. The only reason a community would need to reapply is if they were suspended or dropped, due to inactivity.
Great. Are there best practices that will be offered to new cohorts to help them avoid pitfalls that prior cohorts may have experienced?
I can take that one. That is a really great question. You get best practices at all points. We try to really share as much information as possible because we want you to succeed, because when you succeed, your residents get access to digital resources, and that's really what we all want. So you will get, like I said, resources and best practices at different touch points. So the first major touch point is the summit. So that is where you get kind of the game plan and the kind of see what's been done before, and that helps you to inform your convening, it helps you to inform your planning for the year of Connect Home. But in addition to that, you have monthly check-ins from our Everyone On team, as well as a monthly newsletter, which comes with some best practices in there, as well as a monthly webinar, which gives you resources and best practices. So we're very much in constant communication. And if you have a question, please never hesitate to send us an email.
One thing I'll add to JoJo's response is our playbook. So if you go on our website and you click best practices, we follow the model. Everything is open source. So while we're running a program, we don't want to keep all the information to ourselves. So all of the information about best practices has been documented in our Connect Home playbook, and that's updated every year. So the playbook you see on the website now will probably be updated later this summer to be a whole new playbook with different examples from newer communities, updated resources, new chapters. So we're constantly trying to share those best practices so that people can not only learn from it, but also get access to that community perspective. So So we've been doing this for a while, but we do it from a nonprofit perspective. We work with the community. But as a part of our program, we also have a mentorship program where you can apply for a mentor who has already been a ConnectHomeUSA community. That could be a pilot community or one of our 2017 communities. So you're paired with that kind of person to talk one-on-one about, hey, here's the challenge I faced, and here's how I overcame it. That might be a solution for you as well. So those conversations I feel are really useful. And as Jojo mentioned, on the portal, we do have chat functions that are specific to your region. So you can chat with, let's say you're in Region 9, all of HUD Region 9, or you can chat on specific topics. So there's a chat about devices, there's a chat about partnerships, there's a chat about training resources. And you can easily hop in there and just say, hey, I'm struggling with X. Has anyone had an experience there? So we try to keep it as communicative as possible between communities, trying to get you those resources as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
So we've got a very specific question, and I'm going to try to read it in a way that you guys can understand. So our new RAD development, which is all public housing residents, are moving into new units. And the local PHA has a subsidiary that is funded by a 501c3 nonprofit, and that nonprofit is funded by LIHTC, Home, PHA, Colorado Department of Housing. So would that community be eligible for this program?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, I do believe they will be eligible, but I would ask that the asker on that one just send me a quick email so I can read through it again, just to make sure. But I do believe you'll be eligible to apply.
Great. And then we had a follow-up question from you said the program may be ending in 2020, and that's your right now answer. So what will happen to the residents, and will they have access to the internet after 2020?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we really focused on as we entered our expansion was making sure that our stakeholders were willing to expand their offers beyond just our communities and kind of make them indefinite. So even if the program technically ends in 2020, we would still anticipate those resources being available for communities. So there's not like a 2020 all service is going to end. I would still expect, be it T-Mobile or AT&T or Google Fiber, if your resident signed up for service, they should still be able to access those. The same thing with our content providers. If they're working through College Board, they should still be able to access those resources even after 2020. And if we did sunset in 2020, like I said, we follow the model open source. We would make all of our resources publicly available online for folks who maybe they weren't a part of the program, but still want to try to do digital inclusion work for their residents, or maybe they were a part of the program and just want to continue. So we'll make all of that available if the program does end in 2020.
So that's all the questions we have for right now, unless folks want to continue sending them in. And I did just want to say that this PowerPoint is the webinar is being recorded, and we will send the PowerPoint out after the webinar.
Got it. Well, I think that puts us kind of right on time. I'm just going to go ahead to the next slide here. So we, as I mentioned, will send Caitlin our information. If you want to email us, if you have additional questions, feel free to tweet at us if that's your thing. But really want to thank National Housing Conference for hosting us. We really appreciate your continued partnership here.
And we echo that thanks right back to you guys, everyone on, and for all your work on ConnectHomeUSA to really expand this to HUD-assisted households. And actually, we did have one more question, so because we're still under the 3 o'clock hour, I'll allow it. If we are not approved as a Connect Home partner, can we still access discounted ISP rates for our PHA residents?
Great question. Yes. So if you look on our website, if you go to, I believe it's under best practices, you will see at the bottom, we list out all of our stakeholders who have made their offers open. meaning you don't have to be a part of ConnectHomeUSA to take advantage of those offers. So there you'll find a complete list of the ones that are completely open to anyone in the U.S. who wants to take advantage of them. And I believe if you click through them, you can also find the contact information. So even if you don't get into the program, there are still steps that you can be taking to kind of bridge the digital divide for your residents. Those are very good questions. Thanks.
All right, well, that seems like a great place to end it. So as I said, we're recording this webinar, and we'll send out an email with a link to the recording and a link to the slides within 24 to 48 hours after the webinar. So you can look out for an email from us. But thank you for all of you for giving an hour of your day to learn about this initiative, and thanks again to everyone on for leading this work. We're really excited about it and hope that we can continue this great partnership.
Thank
So
you,
with
Gatling.
that, we will end the webinar, and everyone have a great rest of your day.